I stepped into the crosswalk, still glowing from an evening spent with my son, when a stranger's hand clamped onto my arm. "Stop. It's a setup." A truck roared past at breakneck speed, missing me by inches. My heart pounded as I turned, breathless. "Who are you? How did you know?" The man's voice was low, urgent. "Don't you know me?" I squinted in the dim streetlight and realized who he was. In that instant, everything I thought I knew shattered. My son's words had sliced through the quiet of my evening like a knife through velvet. "You're being unfair," Matthew snapped, his voice sharp with accusation. I set down my newspaper, sliding my glasses off with measured calm. The fire's glow danced across the room, shadows flickering over the ornate rug where my son paced, restless as a cornered wolf. "Unfair," I repeated, standing to my full height. At 68, I still carried the authority of my 6'2" frame. That's a bold claim. His tailored suit gleamed in the firelight, his polished hands gesturing wildly, so different from my own, roughened by years of labor. "You're old, Dad. It's time to hand over the reins to someone younger." "Younger?" The word stung, bitter as gall. "You mean reckless?" Matthew froze, his sleek hair catching the light from the street lamps outside our old windows. "I went to Yale. I have plans to take the business forward." "Yale?" That framed degree in his condo meant nothing compared to the empire I'd built. "Your education didn't teach you what I learned in 40 years of grinding work." He stepped closer, his cologne mingling with the scent of burning logs. "The world's changed, Dad. We need new ideas, new energy." My posture stiffened, old military instincts kicking in. "I'll hold the reins as long as I see fit." His voice cracked with frustration. "That's not fair to the company, or to me. I've been there for over a decade." "Learning," I shot back, closing the distance between us. "Not leading." The framed photos on the mantel, my late wife, Margaret, smiling in better days, seemed to watch our clash. Matthew's gaze flicked to them, then back to me. "I'm not some kid fetching coffee anymore. I know the clients, the trends you ignore." His voice wavered. "You're holding the company back." A chill settled on my chest. "With that mindset, you'll only get this business over my dead body." The room fell silent, the ticking of the old clock deafening. "The will," he whispered, almost to himself. "It's still in my name, isn't it?" The question hung heavy, like a storm cloud. I studied him, my son, and saw something in his eyes that froze me more than the autumn night outside. "For now," I said, pointing to the door with the same command I'd used on job sites for decades. "Leave my house." His face paled. For a moment, he was the boy who'd trailed me on construction sites, eager and wide-eyed. Then his jaw tightened. "You'll regret this, Dad." His footsteps echoed as he stormed out, the door slamming hard enough to shake the walls. The sound lingered like a thunderclap. I stood still, listening as his car roared to life and sped off into the city night, leaving only the scent of scorched tires and his anger behind. The quiet that followed was heavier than his presence. My shoulders slumped as I moved to the liquor cabinet, steps heavy on the worn rug. I poured a glass of aged scotch, its amber glow catching the firelight, but I couldn't drink. My calloused hands trembled faintly. I set the glass down and wiped them on my trousers. Margaret's photo gazed at me from its frame. "You were right about him," I murmured. The fire dimmed, shadows stretching across the room. Outside, the city's lights cast a soft glow on the sidewalk. Ungrateful, I thought, pacing the same path Matthew had worn. I'd given up so much, weekends, family dinners, all to build something lasting. I stopped at the shelves lined with plaques and awards. For decades of turning Jenkins Construction from a small operation into a powerhouse. And my son saw me as a roadblock. I sank into my armchair, the leather creaking, and pressed my hands to my face, surrounded by the familiar scent of old books and polish. Margaret and I had built this home, this life, before illness took her, before Matthew's entitlement tainted our legacy. Maybe I'd been too lenient, I admitted to the empty room. Margaret had cautioned against spoiling him, private schools, Yale, a job handed to him. I'd wanted him to have what I never did, growing up in a rough neighborhood. The scotch sat untouched. I stared at it, remembering his graduation, my pride in him, my belief he'd take the company to new heights. That hope now felt like a cruel joke. A siren wailed outside, life moving on while mine felt stuck in betrayal. The phone rang once, then stopped, maybe a friend of his, or work. Work. The one constant since Margaret's death. Jenkins Construction was more than a business. It was proof a kid from nowhere could build something real. I stood, resolve hardening. I'd go to the office, clear my head away from this house and its memories. The company deserved better than to be passed to someone who saw it as a birthright, not a responsibility. I doused the fire and turned off the lamps, the house sinking into darkness as I climbed the stairs, my shadow leading the way. At the landing, I glanced back at the room where my bond with my son had fractured. I needed rest to face what I'd learned about him. The office parking lot was deserted, a sharp contrast to the usual bustle. I swiped my key card, my steps echoing in the marble lobby as the elevator carried me up. Jenkins Construction filled the entire floor, a sleek space with views of the harbor that still struck me after years here. I flicked on the lights, the hum of fluorescence breaking the silence. Liz's desk held fresh flowers and photos of our 50 employees' families. Walking through the office was like wandering through a gallery of my life's work, photos and blueprints of projects that reshaped neighborhoods. In the break room, I brewed coffee with practiced care, the machine's hiss a familiar comfort. The harbor outside was gray and restless under the cloudy sky. My office welcomed me with its sturdy desk and chair, gifts from Margaret when we'd upgraded from our first tiny space. "A man like you needs to look the part," she'd said, dismissing my complaints about the cost. I ignored the newspaper on my desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a small model of our first project, a rundown building we'd turned into something beautiful. I'd stood in its dusty shell, doubting myself, while Margaret brought me coffee, her belief in me stronger than my fears. "Just one house nobody wanted," I said aloud, turning the model over. Memories flooded back, rejected loans, long nights, Margaret's lunches at job sites, her faith in what I could build. Our first big contract had felt like a miracle, years of struggle validated by a single deal that led to more. Margaret's last words rang in my ears, "Don't let anyone cheapen what you've done, Thomas. This is your legacy." Matthew didn't get it. Dreams without effort were nothing. Effort without vision was empty. He had neither. From my window, I watched sailors on the harbor, their boats gliding with skill earned through experience, not entitlement. The model in my hands was solid, a reminder that hard work turned ideas into reality. Jenkins Construction supported 50 families who relied on steady leadership, not impulsive ambition. Our reputation, built on trust and quality, couldn't be handed to someone who saw it as a prize to claim. I sipped my cold coffee, setting the model on my desk as a daily reminder. Standing at the window, I felt a quiet certainty. The company would endure this family rift because it was rooted in something deeper than blood, value forged through labor. The phone rang at reception, but I let it go. Jenkins Construction would keep going, no matter the personal cost. My decision felt solid, like the ice on the harbor, unyielding and clear. At my kitchen table, surrounded by reports, my thoughts lingered on Matthew's silence. The phone in my study rang, sharp and insistent. I hesitated, used to getting work calls on my cell. After several rings, I picked up. "Dad, it's me." Matthew's voice was softer than I remembered, almost tentative. "I owe you an apology for our fight." I sat up, the afternoon light filtering through the windows, dust motes swirling like my racing thoughts. "I didn't think you'd call," I said cautiously. "I was wrong to push you. You built that company from the ground up. I had no right to demand it." The photos on my desk, Margaret's smile, Matthew's graduation, seemed to listen. A tightness in my chest eased. "We both said things we regret." His tone brightened. "The Red Sox are playing the Yankees, last game of the season. Want to go, like we used to? You always loved crushing New York." The idea caught me off guard, hope stirring despite myself. "You're serious?" "Absolutely. Meet me at the main gate at dusk. I'll get great seats, a real father-son night." I smiled, something I hadn't done since our fight. "Sounds perfect, son." We'd last gone to Fenway together before everything changed, when he still seemed to enjoy my company. Those games were our ritual, something Margaret championed. "I'll text if anything changes," he said. "See you at the gate." I hung up, staring at my reflection in the darkening glass. Maybe Margaret was right about patience. Maybe he just needed time to see what mattered. The Red Sox gear on my shelf, signed balls, old programs, a faded photo of a legend, glowed faintly. I headed to my bedroom, lighter than I'd felt in ages. I left the office early, sharing my plans with Liz. Her eyes lit up. "Thomas, that's wonderful. It's been too long since you two went to a game." Climbing my brownstone steps, I felt a surge of excitement. The autumn air was crisp, ideal for baseball. In my closet, I found my old Red Sox jersey, soft from years of wear, rich with memories. It had seen Matthew's first game at 12, his eyes wide as we entered Fenway. He'd eaten too many hot dogs and felt sick but refused to leave. My cap, a gift from Margaret, sat dusty on the shelf, its brim perfectly worn. The forecast promised clear skies, cool but not cold. I picked a light jacket, practical for stadium seats. I decided to walk to Fenway, a short trek through familiar streets. The evening was too perfect for a car, and I wanted to savor this chance at reconciliation. I called Liz to say I might be late the next day, depending on the game. "Enjoy it," she said warmly. "You've earned this." Earned? Did I? Maybe Margaret was right about giving him time. I stepped onto the historic sidewalks, gas lamps flickering to life, casting soft light on worn bricks. Kids played nearby, and the smell of dinners wafted from homes. The walk took me through the city's heart, each step bringing me closer to a fresh start with my son. Margaret used to say baseball bonded men, sitting together, cheering as one. At a corner, I glanced back at my brownstone. Its windows warm against the fading sky. Fenway's green monster loomed as I neared the entrance. Fans flooding in, a mix of red and navy with a few bold Yankees jerseys. Matthew waved from near the ticket windows, his pressed Red Sox polo a contrast to my worn jersey. His enthusiasm seemed real as he hugged me, the embrace lingering. I fought back tears. "Dad, that jersey's perfect. Reminds me of old times. Your mom got it for me when you started Little League." I adjusted my cap, suddenly shy. He flashed expensive tickets. Right behind home plate. Best I could get. The cost must have been steep, his generosity surprising me as we passed security into the buzzing concourse. "Remember the bleacher days?" I asked, nodding toward the cheaper seats. "Sure, but tonight's special." Our seats were incredible, VIP, cushioned, sheltered. Matthew had gone all out, and it meant more than words could. "These must have cost a fortune," I said. "Worth it to see you happy," he replied, ordering hot dogs and beers. As the teams warmed up, we slipped into easy talk. He recalled stats I'd taught him, laughed at my jabs about the Yankees roster. "Remember when I was 12, and you explained Fenway's quirks? The monster, pesky's pole? You ate 5 hot dogs and got sick," I teased. "2 tonight," he grinned. His laugh took me back to when he held my hand in these halls. The game started, and we stood with the roaring crowd. The Yankees led early, but Matthew stayed upbeat, cheering every play, buying more beers. By the 5th, Boston surged ahead, 7-4. We high-fived, voices raw, just a father and son caught in the timeless thrill. During the 7th inning stretch, we sang "Sweet Caroline," his arm around me, swaying with thousands. For the first time since Margaret's death, I felt whole. "Thanks for calling," I said as the game ended. "I needed this." His smile faltered for a split second. "Let's beat the crowd," he suggested, as fans streamed out. We lingered by our seats, grabbing jackets, the field lights bright as the crew prepped for winter. "Why don't we split up?" I parked across Kenmore. "You're headed to Beacon Hill, right?" It made sense. "Thanks again, son." This meant everything. Our last hug lingered as fans flowed past us. The crowd carried us along Yawkey Way, horns blaring, vendors shouting. "Hell of a game," I yelled, hoarse. 7-4 against New York. Doesn't get better. Matthew glanced at his watch. "I'm parked in the pricey lot. Sure you don't want a ride?" The night air was crisp, stars visible above the city. "No, I'll walk. Want to hold on to this feeling." His car, a sleek sedan, sat in a costly spot, another sign of his effort. "Be careful, Dad. Traffic's wild after games." "I've walked these streets forever," I said, smiling. "I'm fine." He hugged me again, his grip tight, almost urgent. "Thanks for fixing this," I whispered. "Your mom would love this." His eyes shone in the lot's harsh lights as he fumbled his keys. "Drive safe," I called as he got in. "Text me when you're home." "Will do. You too, Dad." "Straight home." His car purred off into the traffic. I stood there, soaking in the night's magic, then started my walk, the autumn air sharp with winter's promise. The route wound past familiar neighborhoods, gaslit streets welcoming me home. Margaret's voice seemed to whisper, "Patience pays off, Thomas." At Lansdowne and Brookline, I paused, glancing back at Fenway's glow. The walk was peaceful, brownstones lining quiet streets, leaves rustling under golden streetlights. I reached the intersection, my mind replaying our reconciliation. The light turned green, the walk sign lit. I stepped forward, my jersey bright under the lights, unaware of the death hurtling toward me at 80 miles per hour. A hand yanked me back, the force staggering. Stop. It's a trap. A truck thundered past where I'd stood, its roar deafening, headlights blinding, the air tugging at my jacket. The ground shook. I stumbled into the stranger, both of us nearly falling. The truck vanished with screeching tires, leaving the stench of diesel and rubber. What the hell? I gasped, heart racing, the near miss hitting me like a tidal wave. The man steadied me, his grip strong. He wore a dark coat and glasses, about Matthew's age, his face a mix of urgency and guilt. "Are you okay?" he asked, scanning me in the streetlight. "I'm alive," I whispered. "That truck would have killed me." The street fell silent, as if staged for this moment. "Sit," he said, leading me to a bench. "You're in shock." My legs wobbled. The jersey, the cap, my shoes, all felt like props in a nightmare. "How did you know to grab me?" I asked, sinking onto the cold bench. He sat, cleaning his glasses with shaky hands. His eyes met mine, and a chill ran through me. "Mr. Jenkins, we need to talk." I stared, struggling to place his familiar face. "Do I know you?" "Grover Ellis," he said softly. "Matthew's friend from Yale. We met at a company picnic." It clicked. The lawyer. Right. But why were you here? His face twisted with guilt. "Matthew told me his plan. He hired someone to hit you with that truck." The words struck harder than any blow. "No. We reconciled tonight. The game, the laughs. It was all a setup," Grover said, his voice heavy. "He wanted you off guard. The game, the apology, it was to make you an easy mark." Reality crumbled. The tickets, the hugs, all lies. "He owes $50,000 to dangerous people," Grover continued. "The only way out was—" He stopped, unable to say it. "My company," I finished, the truth a knife in my gut. My son, the boy I'd taught to swing a bat, had planned my murder while smiling at me. "A professional driver," Grover said. $50,000 for an accident. A father killed walking home from a night with his son. My hands shook, the jersey now a mockery. Every moment I'd cherished tonight was a performance. "Why didn't you warn me earlier?" My voice was hollow. "I wanted to. I was torn, loyalty to a friend." He gestured helplessly. "I couldn't let you die." The cold seeped through me, Boston's nightlife humming on, oblivious. $50,000, I muttered. "That's my worth to him." Grover shifted. "He doesn't know I stopped it. He thinks it failed by chance." "What will you do?" I sat, the life I'd known with my son in ruins. A cold resolve grew, replacing grief. He'd tried to kill me for money. I'd decide what that meant. I took the cigarette he offered, my first in years. His lighter flared, our faces lit in the dark. "Tell me everything," I said, steadier now. "What did he plan?" Grover exhaled smoke. "He came to me, called it a discreet opportunity. Debts were crushing him, mortgage, school fees. He thought I'd help with a loan. Instead, he asked you to help kill me." "Not outright. He hinted at accidents, problems vanishing. When he said it plainly, I was sickened." Sirens wailed distantly, tensing us both. "The driver?" I pressed. "A pro who fakes accidents for insurance scams. Matthew found him through old gambling contacts. $50,000 for a clean hit." Each word buried my son further. "How long?" "A few weeks. The game was his masterstroke, get you sentimental, walking alone. The tickets weren't kindness. They were bait." "His wife knows about the debt?" "Yes." "The murder?" "I doubt it. She thought he'd find a real solution." The irony hit, her pressure for money twisting into this horror. "Why step in now?" Grover cleaned his glasses again. "I couldn't live with it. Friendship doesn't cover murder." We sat, the city's pulse indifferent to my son's betrayal. "He's waiting for news of my death," I said. "What now?" I stood, a new man, harder, colder. "He gets what he deserves." "Nothing." I walked into Grover's office in my sharpest suit, carrying a briefcase packed with documents I'd prepared through a sleepless night. The Cambridge setting, near Yale, felt fitting, where Matthew's arrogance had taken root. "Thomas, come in," Grover said, shutting the door. "Coffee, black? Please." I set my briefcase down, noting the diplomas and ethics codes on his walls. The office smelled of leather and coffee, a place to dismantle my son's future without emotion. "I want him cut out completely," I said, revealing my will, company papers, and financials. "No company, no house, no investments." Grover nodded. "I have the forms. Where do the assets go?" "A foundation, Jenkins Community Housing. Profits will build homes for working families." The idea had formed overnight, guided by Margaret's memory. "Smart," Grover said, scanning my papers. "It helps people and leaves Matthew with nothing." We worked methodically, redirecting every asset he'd expected to inherit toward families who earned their way. "The foundation's structure protects it from challenges," Grover said. "Massachusetts law favors charitable bequests." "Good. Make it ironclad." I signed with the precision of 40 years of contracts. "How soon can we notarize?" "Today. I'll get witnesses." He stamped copies with his seal. "Bank gets the original, you and I keep copies." From his window, I saw Yale's spires, where Matthew's entitlement began. Now, it was steps from the papers that erased it. "Our talk last night?" I asked. "Confidential. All of it." Grover's face was solemn. "You're choosing justice, Thomas. Margaret would approve." Her name struck home. She'd have loved this, helping others, not rewarding betrayal. "Let him wait for money that'll never come," I said, packing the documents. "While he dreams of wealth, we'll build homes for those who deserve them." Our handshake was more than professional. Two men who'd paid a price for what was right. The notary's office sat in the North End, among hardworking families who'd shaped the city. My briefcase carried the weight of justice. "Mr. Jenkins," the notary said, a third-generation pro. "Let's make these official." I laid out the papers, Newell cutting Matthew out. Foundation documents, asset transfers, bequests to schools. Each was a blow to his expectations. The notary checked my ID with care, then called in two witnesses, a retired professor and a shop owner, both unconnected to me, chosen for their integrity. They signed after reviewing each page. "Jenkins Community Housing," the professor read. "A fine legacy." "It's what the company was meant for," I said, signing with a steady hand. The notary's stamp sealed each document, making my son's betrayal permanent in law. "No mention of your son," he noted. "Unusual for a family business. His choices, his consequences." In that office, surrounded by the tools of justice, I felt peace I hadn't known since Margaret's death. Matthew wanted my death for profit. Instead, my life would enrich others. The company he'd kill for would house families. His expected wealth would educate kids who valued effort. "All binding," the notary said, handing me copies. I packed them with satisfaction. Margaret's voice seemed to nod approval. She'd always believed in lifting others up. Outside, I lit a cigar, the harbor salt air mixing with its smoke. I'd outplayed a traitor without losing my soul. At the water's edge, I looked to the horizon where Margaret and I once dreamed of sailing. The foundation was our shared memorial, turning a story of betrayal into one of community. Traffic flowed behind me, people living honest lives, unaware that justice had been served quietly, that a son's crime had become a father's gift. My briefcase held more than papers, it held proof that good could overcome evil, cleanly and legally. I finished my cigar and walked home, at peace with the balance I'd struck.